That's a rose amongst...
A rose amongst thorns. I was going to say, you should use this.
Or should I say it the other way?
Yeah, two roses amongst the thorns.
Okay, it's 1 minute warning. We'll be starting.
Recording in progress.
Good morning, everyone. I want to welcome all of you to the Los Animas County Board of County Commissioners regular meeting. Today is Tuesday, May 21st, 2024. It is now 9 a.m. I'm going to call this meeting to order. Please rise for an invocation by Commissioner Tony Haas, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance by our House District Representative 47, Mr. Todd Winter.
Lord Jesus, thank you for another day. Thank you for the gift of life. We pray for your forgiveness, protection, and guidance. Bless our loved ones and heal our ailments. We ask this in your holy name. Amen.
Amen.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Roll call, Mr. Dorringham.
Commissioner Hess.
Here.
Commissioner Luis Lopez.
Here.
Commissioner Felix Lopez.
Here. Approval of the agenda. Do we have any changes to the agenda?
No changes, Commissioner.
I'll entertain a motion to approve that agenda.
Move to approve the agenda.
Second motion.
Commissioner Luis Lopez.
Yes.
Commissioner Hess.
Yes.
Commissioner Felix Lopez.
Yes, we don't have anything on section 2, consideration of minutes. We're going to go to reading of correspondence, Commissioner Committee reports. Commissioner Luis Lopez, would you like to go first?
Thank you, Chairman, and good morning, everybody. Thank you for being here. Start off with a thank you to our fire departments here in Los Angeles County. We've had multiple small fires throughout the past couple of weeks. We've seen a lot of alerts from our emergency manager, Joe Richards. Thank you, Mr. Richards, for the notifications on all that, and a big thank you to our fire departments throughout Los Angeles County in their attention to these issues that come up. So start with that. May 16th, we had the Transportation Commission meeting at the CDOT headquarters in Denver, and we were very fortunate and averted a temporary suspension of the boundary changes by the Transportation Commission. We were very fortunate to get an amendment to the rulemaking, and at this time, the Transportation Commission Vice Chair made the motion to suspend, and at this time, the boundary changes, and it's going to give us about 6 months till November to come up with some legislation to amend the initial legislation when the Transportation Planning Region boundaries were put in place, to amend that to add a boundary for Summit County. That's the squeaky wheel that needs the grease, in my opinion, and I think we'll be able to get this done. We have Representative Winters that's going to help us and advise us moving forward. We appreciate you, Representative Winters, for doing so, and we'll be in contact with Mr. Pipkin and the TPR chairman of the Intermountain Range, Ryan Glasby here at South Central Council of Governments, I'd like to thank Wendy Andrade, who came up from Powers County to testify, and Mr. Steve Sanchez with the Hospital Association, Alpian Lamar, Springfield. He drove up to 3 in the morning that morning to get there for a 9 a.m. meeting. So I thank all of those who were there in attendance. We dodged a bullet at this point, and we'll move forward and getting this accomplished. That same day, I was able to drive across Denver to downtown, and we had the Front Range Passenger Rail workshop. At this particular workshop, we met with Amtrak. Amtrak is in the bidding to possibly be the provider or operator of the Front Range Rail, and we had a nice systematic breakdown of how their operations run throughout the country. Some states have agreements with Amtrak and some do not. So such as your California Zephyr and your Santa Fe, the chief that comes through here, those are not state agreements. Those are a federal partnership with those without states, but a lot of the other ones that are in the Minnesota area, New York, New Jersey, and throughout they have the three, which would be the federal, Amtrak, and state government. So we had a nice breakdown of how that operation works, what the contribution in the state of Colorado would be, which would be Front Range Rail at this time, not so much the state of Colorado, but Front Range Rail as independent agents of the state. And so I feel comfortable with Amtrak being the future provider at this time. We'll see what happens. We still have a lot of funding mechanisms to get in place. This afternoon at 1 o'clock, the executive committee, which is I'm a board member of, will meet, and we'll have a discussion regarding the latest polling that came back to us. And then we will make the recommendation after today to the board whether we have go, no go for a 2024 ballot measure. So we'll see what happens from that moving forward and what the executive committee decides to do. And then we'll pass that on to the entire board on the last Friday of the month, will be next week. I'm sorry, it'll be this Friday. Then also, we attended the parade this weekend for Armed Forces Day, and we'd like to thank all of our veterans and active duty personnel from Los Angeles County for what they do for our community. It was an honor to be in this parade with my fellow commissioners. Thank you. We've done this every year as much as we've been available, and I'm very proud to be a part of that, Ms. Linda Barron, for putting that on. And a big shout out to our track teams, our coach, Ms. Jody Amato from Branson. I believe we have some state champions in Branson, Colorado, so congratulations to you, the school of Branson. And also Trinidad State College has a national champion at Division II, I believe. So a great weekend for Los Angeles County and Trinidad State College. That's my report.
Thank you, sir. Commissioner Haas.
Well, Luis, you stole my thunder. I was going to congrats all the Los Angeles County graduates and all of our track participants. That we had several state track qualifiers and then we had several state champions. So even if only we had a couple that placed really high in their division. On the 17th, I attended the CTSI meeting. I'm on the executive team for that committee, and renewals dominated the conversation with CCAP pool, and it's no surprise that law enforcement was the largest driver of loss, and but the good news is that this year compared to 2023, we've seen a decrease so far in the activity there. So that's very encouraging. Also on the 15th, Colorado County's the Ag Committee put together a meeting with Commissioner of Ag, Kate Greenberg. It's a monthly meeting that occurs every month, and we get an update from her. The conversation revolved around the bird flu, H5N1, and CDC and FDA recommending that we don't drink raw milk, that the pasteurization of milk kills the virus, and they don't want us to drink raw milk at this time. The USD ordered 9 states and have the bird flu, and they're very nervous. And we have 2 premises here in Colorado that are affected with it. There's only been 2 cases of transmission into humans, and it was from hand-eye contact, so conjunctivitis, redness of the eyes, and it cleared up within a week on both individuals. They told us that we have 2 regional assistants in southern Colorado, Riley May from Lamar, and Nikki Perchis from Pueblo. And so they'll be traveling this area and helping us, and we look forward to seeing them. Wolves was the next topic we talked about. There were 10 wolves west of the Continental Divide that were released. 1 of them died. It was attacked by a mountain lion, apparently, is what the ruling is. The depredations continue in Middle Park and North Park, and they were pretty rampant in mid-April, and slowed down somewhat. Kate was really excited about telling everybody that there was a $20,000 grant that was going to be available for Middle Park Ranching Association, and to use for whatever they deem necessary, flaggery or lights or whatever they were going to do, and they chose a range rider, 1 range rider.
For the entire state.
And I asked them, how is that going to be helpful? And I also asked, where does the liability lie? I've done a little night riding and range riding, and if you don't know where the electric fences are, or where the culverts are, or where the ditches are, and your horse goes down, who's liable for that? Well, out of that $20,000, that range rider has to provide his own liability. And I said, so what is the jurisdiction of this range rider? How many acres does he have to? She said, what are you talking about, Commissioner? How many miles do they have? I said, no, I want to know how many acres that individual has to cover. And she said, well, all he's going to do is ride once a week to give temporary relief to that rancher so that he can get at least 1 night's sleep. I said, you know what, if I'm a rancher and I've got wolves eating my cows, even with that range rider out there, I'm not going to sleep. And I said, to me, the introduction of this wolf, I said, you know, Colorado Department of Ag has done a really good job of mitigating mental health. They've got grants out there for mental health, but the introduction of the wolf has caused another dynamic that is actually increasing the stress level for those ranchers. One rancher in Grand County, he's a young man with a young family. He's trying to get a start. And they killed 9 cattle on his ranch alone. And how is 1 range rider going to help him feel better? When you lose that many cattle out of a 200 cow outfit, he's probably going to be looking at foreclosure before too long. Bankruptcy. Anyway, that's the end of my spell right now. I'll be quiet.
Thank you, Commissioner Hess. Thank you, Commissioners. My report, pretty short. Want to highlight one of the things that happened when we met with CDA. Once again, the question about wolves. There is also going to be an opportunity to have this training across Colorado for non-lethal technical assistance, which it's kind of a, quite honestly, is something that is going to be too little too late. We have had farmers and ranchers from the west part of this county that have actually asked me if what happens if I pull the trigger, if I see one of those wolves when they get here, and am I going to be prosecuted? So those were the questions that we had with CDA, because at the end of the day, quite honestly, to send someone with to train to use non-lethal technical assistance, you know, somebody made a comment on the meeting that we were at. If one of those animals is chewing on my calf, I'm going to pull the trigger, because at the end of the day, it's the one concept that we don't get them to understand. And there is going to be a second release of wolves. We don't know when that's going to happen. I think there's going to be another 15 coming to Colorado. And so, but in any event, go out and we have a lot of the links to this information that we have. And later on, we're going to hear from our Representative Winter to give us an update. So let me, first of all, once again, give a huge shout out to our athletes from Los Angeles County. Jody, congratulations to you and your team, and also Trinidad State, the coach near and dear. I happened to be there when we hired the softball coach, and he's playing at the national level. By the way, they're going to play today at 4 p.m. They lost the game yesterday. They have another game today at 4 p.m., but they're elevating Trinidad's name. One of the updates that I want to give is we're going to be getting statistical data, what's happening right now on Region 19 for the opioid dollars that we're spending as a region, the 9 counties. So last week we had a meeting, and one of my questions to the providers of those services, I want to see a report. How many people are getting treatment in Los Angeles County? And I would imagine the rest of the counties want to hear the same thing. How much money have we spent here in Los Angeles County? How are we now encountering this pandemic? Are we making progress? What's happening? So we're going to hold back a little bit on the year 2 appropriation, because I want to see more results. And as the vice chair of the region, I think as we move on, one of the commissioners might be moving on, so this county has the opportunity to probably take the lead as the chair of the 9 counties when it comes to the opioid dollars. There's going to be a conference,
I
sir.
think you do a great job if we got you in that position, Chairman.
Well, thank you. And so the legislative session, and we're going to probably hear this from Representative Winter, 120-day marathon. The themes of this legislative session were from property taxes, artificial intelligence, land use, youth sports, behavioral health, and even the theme of wolverines and grizzly somehow found its way into the streams of Colorado. So I hope this is going to be just conversation. There were 705 bills introduced, and CCI, Colorado Counties, Inc., was basically engaged in 128 of them. And we have a comparison. Let me just kind of give you of the bills that CCI has been involved. In 2020, we had 102 where CCI was completely directed, involved in it. 2021, 130, 2022, 95, 2023, 83, and 2024, 128. So in the last 5 years, there has been 500 bills that directly would have impacted, positive or negatively, in your counties. So this is basically your Colorado counties working together and working through the legislative team that we have in Denver and working with our elected representatives. So this CCI and this particular session worked really hard. Of the 128 bills that were tracked by us, there are certain priorities that CCI came up with. We want this, we want this. And we usually get a pretty good tracking on that. But as we're getting ready to go to the CCI summer conference next week, we're going to have a debrief. What happened? What do we expect? But I believe that 2025 is going to be no different than what happened in 2024. So for that, once again, if you want to go, it's Colorado Counties Inc. Go to that website, and we have a bill table of all the bills that we advocated for, fought with, and then I encourage any one of you and all of us to spend a day with our representatives. I did that in Denver, and I tell you what, it's impressive to see what these guys do, and to the point that they forgo their meals. And it was an exciting day for me to see our representatives and our senators fighting for rural Colorado. So on that, that's going to be my report. Let me now go to elected officials update. County Assessor is Jody Amado.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you for the congratulations. It was quite an experience, quite a good experience. I want to say thank you to all and congratulations to all those seniors that got to leave that stadium with medals around their neck. It's truly a touching and sweet moment. I have to give a shout out to a gentleman from Primero, Mr. Pena. He won the 2 mile and the 1 mile, graduated this year. What an amazing runner. Pony had some great folks that showed up, kids that participated. Miss Foster was second as a freshman in the high jump. She put up a heck of a performance. My team from Kim Branson, I'm very proud of them, very excited. We walked away with 2 state championships. We qualified in the 4x1, the 4x2, the 4x4, and the 4x8. I had 2 brothers that ran the mile, and I had a young man who ran the 300 hurdles. We did have to pull out of the 4x1 because you can only run 4 events at the state track meet. We came in 6th in the 4x8, happened to make it all the way to the top of the podium first. So I had some gentlemen that really dug deep and ran with everything they had. Our 4x4, we were 7th in the state, made it to the top of the podium in that. My 2 gentlemen, the brothers that ran the mile, that was a very sweet and heartfelt run to watch because they came in 4th and 5th. And my hurdler came in 5th, so there was a lot of tears, a lot of sunburns, and my voice is gone from tell them to run fast, turn left. But thank you, there was a lot of representation from this county, and I'm happy to share the good and to see the good, because we have enough bad that happens in our day-to-day. So when we have good stuff go on, it's nice to share it. Well, I'm here to tell you a little bit of what assessors are looking at as far as the Senate Bill 24233 and Senate Bill 24111. As assessors, we are going to be having our annual summer conference will be in June. And that's when we will really start to break down and deep dive into what we have to do with this bill and how we're going to implement this bill. I spent most of yesterday on the phone and on Zoom meetings because the ballot initiatives are still going to the ballot. And depending on what the outcome of that is in November, will determine how we move forward with Senate Bill 233 and Senate Bill 111. And that we have a lot of conversation going on with multiple computer programmers on our computer systems, our camera systems, and each county assessor is having those conversations with their individual computer developers to see where to go, because our developers are not wanting to full throttle production, programming, and movement on this till we know what's going to happen on the November ballots. So we're in I feel like that kid standing in the exchange zone. Do I go? Do I stop? Do I go? Do I stop? So we're just sort of waiting at this moment. The one thing we do know, and we've had a little bit of direction from the Department of Taxation, is in this August, we are going to move forward with rolling back on the actual value exemptions for commercial and residential. We will be we will be using the same assessment rates as we did in 2023. We will be reporting those adjusted values and those lowered assessment rates to all of our entities on the preliminary August certification, because August obviously comes before November. Once we see the outcome of the November election, then we will know which direction, which lever to hit is the easiest way to explain, or which button to push in order to enact either Senate Bill 24233 or Senate Bill 24111. So we're just sort of staying fluid, trying to stay ahead of the 8 ball as much as we can. That way because we're going to have a very limited time frame once again from November to December to get out our final certifications to all of our entities. We are anticipating we won't see as much backfill to entities, that the list is going to be far shorter because only entities that saw revenue valuation downturn from 2022 to 2023, those will be the only districts or entities that will be receiving state backfill. And that's going to be a very short list. We will be looking, and I have to thank Representative Winter. He was able to get ag, also having lowered assessment rates in Senate Bill 24233 and 24111. As it looks now, residential for 23 and 24 will stay at 6.7% assessment rate, and then we will determine that as we go 25, 26, and 27. Schools, we will be seeing them go to 7.15, 7.15, and then in 2027, the Department of Taxation will be making those adjustments on their assessment rate. Vacant land will stay at 27.9. 2025 and 2026 and 2027 will be going to 29. The movable homestead exemption, which will be for 2 years at this time, will go to 7.15 minus 50% of the first 100,000 in value, and it has a floor of $1,000 assessed minimum. We will be seeing residential homes at 6.4, and then in 26 and 27, 6.95, with 10% of the first $700,000 of actual value exempted, or I should say we reduce the first 10% of 700,000 on actual value of their home. Commercial improved will be staying at 27.9 for this year, then going to 27 in 2025, and 2026 and 2027 it'll go down to 25%. Other commercial will go back to 29%. Commercial renewables for 2025 will stay at 27%. 2026 will go to 25 and 25. I have a long list here. Industrial for this year will be at 27.9. In 2025, 2026, and 2027, they will go to 29%. Ag will be at 26.4. Then in 25, it'll go to 27. And then in 26 and 27, it'll go down to 25%. Natural resources will stay the same. Mining, oil and gas will stay the same with that their assessment rates have. State assessed this year will be at 27.9 and then roll back up to 29%. State assessed renewables will roll back up to 29%, and personal property will roll back up to 29%. So I'm going to have a lot of tracking and spreadsheets, and if you see me cowered in a corner, just pat me on the head and tell me to get back in my office.
How many calculations thus far from the 4 traditional calculations that you had to actually send out the tax bills? What are we going to be going to?
Right now, 19. So originally when I started, we had 4 assessment rates, now we're up to 19 different assessment rates. And we're anticipating having different classifications coming our way.
And for the small districts that are going to be backfilled, is that going to be 100% backfill or only a certain percentage?
A certain percentage will be backfilled.
And that I would imagine is coming from the state general fund.
That is my understanding, is that's where that is coming from, and we will be doing reporting next March for all of that.
If I may, Mr. Model, thank you. Other than being here today, does your office have any plans to possibly reach out to all of our districts and let them know of these changes or possible so they can appropriately start budgeting for next year? Communication with them?
Yes, after I get home from my assessors conference in June, and we have a very thorough tear this apart, break it down, and digest it, I will have a better, I will be better prepared and more educated to explain to our districts what they need to be anticipating. So after June, I will be reaching out, or hopefully having some face-to-face sit-down coffee time meetings with them to help, hopefully help guide them through. Because there's going to come a lot of questions about what they can do with their mill levy, and if they have been de-tapered or de-bruised in the 90s, how this new law and how this is going to affect them and where they're going to stand going forward. Because as most people know, the first place your entities come to when it comes to their mill levies, they're coming to assessors' offices for direction and for information and guidance. And then we give them what we can, but then we guide them to their local attorneys, because we are not taper experts by any means, but we try to give them the connections and the best answers we can so they can do what they need to do with the best information.
And if the board is okay with this and with our finance director and staff, maybe we're able to hold a public work session with you?
I think that would be very, very wise, and I would be open to that suggestion. I think that would be a great idea if we can get all of them in one spot, because many minds are better than 1 or 2 minds.
Would you like to see that happen before the initiatives are voted on?
If we could do that sometime in July, that would be terrific, because that'll allow those entities to give them time to, if they need to help support a campaign, not support a campaign, it also gives them time to really look at their budgets and their fiscal needs and figure out a plan that best suits those entities.
So I think the whole thing, great point, it's going to be basically 3 scenarios.
Yes, sir.
One without the initiatives, and then with 50 and 108, what happens under all three. So that, but we're looking forward to you bringing information from the assessors conference.
Thank you. And when I get back from June, I will send an email to Phil and to Paula, and hopefully we can set up a work session and get all of our entities invited to it.
We'd be glad to help.
Terrific. Once again, thank you for the congratulations, but I do have to pass it on to those kids that, like I said, I just stand there, tell them run fast, turn left. Thank you.
Thank you, thank you. Anyone from the clerk's office, any updates?
I'll give a quick update. Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Just a quick update. First, I want to thank everybody for their understanding and patience during the construction period. And our office has been closed and then opened and rerouted all over the courthouse, so I just wanted to tell everybody thank you.
Thank you.
Second of all, the ballots, we're running into election season, so here we go. Ballots will drop between June 3rd and June 7th. Our BSPC center, our voting center, and our drop boxes will be opening on the 10th. So they can drop off, I'm assuming this will be opened through here, so they'll be able to drop off at the drop box behind the courthouse or at City Hall, of course, in the lobby or upstairs in our office. And then unaffiliated voters will be getting both ballots, and I'm asking, just reiterating to everybody to please send in only one voted ballot. If both are sent in, we will discard both of them, so neither will be counted. That's really all my updates.
Mrs. Apple, thank you for your patience and your staff. Please pass it on to them. It's very difficult trying it. And, we started this construction project 7 years ago for this courthouse and getting it back to its beauty and glory. So again, thank you, and thank you to the citizens of Los Angeles County for their patience as well. It's trying times, growing pains, it's tough, but thanks again.
Oh, it's going to be beautiful. So thank you guys for getting this grant moving forward to give us this beautiful courthouse. We appreciate it.
It's going to be worth it.
It is,
Yes.
absolutely. So thank you all.
Thank you. Anyone from the treasurer's office? Do we have any update from the sheriff's office?
Good morning, Board. Just a quick update. I had applied for a Justice Assistance Grant Program with the federal government. I did receive a grant award of just under $15,000. It's going to be used to help with detention, control, investigations, sort of equipment. So I was just told the other day that we did receive that.
Congratulations, Sheriff, and looking forward to learning of the details of the services that you're going to be able to provide under those funds.
Thank you.
Thank you. I know we have later on a presentation by our district attorney, so I'm going to forego, and then any updates from our coroner. I also have them on the public comment as well, so I think we'll call on you on the public comment. Is that okay? All right. And so at this time, we are pretty much, that's all the elected officials update, and it is our great honor as the Board of County Commissioners to welcome our state representative for House District 47, Mr. Ty Winter, to provide us updates of what happened, the good, the bad, and the ugly, as he calls it. Good morning, sir.
Good morning, Commissioners. Good morning, everybody. It's good to see you. It was a busy 120 days in the state capitol. It was fast and furious. I'd like to say that we fought hard for rural Colorado, and what we're finding at the state capitol anymore, it isn't a difference in political or party belief. It's the rural-urban divide, and it's a real thing. And one thing that we're constantly pushing back is big city fixes don't fix rural problems, and that's what we that's what we see happen a lot at the state capitol is they have problems and issues that they have to deal with, and of course we get swept into their legislation, which wreaks havoc on rural and small counties, frontier counties, small towns. Through traveling throughout the district, even the parts of Pueblo that I represent are still rural Colorado, small town Pueblo. Pueblo West has that feel still. So, the big thing of the year is you're trying to always shift and move on legislation, trying to pass amendments to make legislation not so bad for the small and rural counties. But it was a very busy year. Of course, I'll get into some of the good and the bad and the ugly. One thing that we saw again is, the climate agenda. And that's what really makes it hard at the state capitol, because sitting on the agricultural committee, we have SMART Act hearings, and that's what we hear for every department of the state. And as we watch the governor and the state government push towards a carbon-free environment, I don't really think we're using everything in the toolbox. First and foremost, I'd like to say I'm an all-above energy type of guy. I think there's a place for everything, from coal, oil, and gas, all the way down to solar and wind. One mantle I've really picked up and I'm going to be pushing over the next 2 years is the nuclear energy mantle. That's something that's really being talked about serious in Colorado now with the new small modular nuclear plants. They're called package plants. They actually sit on the footprint of about the size of a Walmart in its parking lot. And the good thing about it is they're building a plant called the Terra plant in Wyoming right now. But what's interesting about the new nuclear plants is, first of all, there's not a huge amount of eminent domain taken with land, because you don't have a massive nuclear facility. And second of all, you don't need the water. So rural Colorado can be rest assured that now they use a technology called molten salts. And it's a salt cooling system, and if the rods ever overheat, they dump the rods in the molten salts, and it actually encases the rods when they heat. It crystallizes around. So that's some of the technology that's being employed in Wyoming. I think it's something that rural Colorado, and especially House District 47, needs to get on board with. It creates good blue-collar jobs, high-paying jobs, and we'll be able to really keep producing energy for the state of Colorado, because what we've seen with the climate goals is the state is cutting oil and gas and coal off at the knees. And what makes it hard about that is especially in rural Colorado, we talk about slitting the throat of the golden calf, and that's exactly what we're doing. 92% of DNR's budget comes from severance tax, which comes from oil and gas. We saw the governor reel back on $23 million in DOLA funds last year. A lot of that money comes from oil and gas, roads, schools, bridges. The money comes from oil and gas. We even argued during the long bill that they swept severance taxes to balance the budget. So the state relies heavily on severance taxes and oil and gas, but still they run climate policy legislation that cuts us off at the knees. And not only does it hurt the state's budget, it hurts counties like our budget, because we employed so many people off oil and gas. And we saw what happened when the citizens rejected 112 and then the government passed 181. You all live in this community and you saw what happened. So the attack on oil and gas is real. They came to somewhat of an agreement, but we'll see how long the agreement lasts. Air quality bills are really hurting industry. We're seeing like Pueblo, Everaz is always jumping from one foot to the other. They're cleanest steel maker in America. And that's what makes it really hard, is we look at our oil and gas group and we look at our steel production, and they've actually tried to do their best. We're the cleanest producing oil and gas state in the nation. We produce this cleanest steel in the nation, and it still seems like that it's not enough for the climate goals. And that's where, to swing back, nuclear energy is so important, because if they want to reach the no carbon by their date, the only way to keep firm, reliable power on the grid is with nuclear energy, and we really need to get on board with that. So we saw the attacks on that. There was some parental rights attacks this year as well. We spent a lot of time at the Capitol negotiating and talking about bills that really don't affect Coloradans' everyday lives. Right now, the emails I receive throughout House District 47, and most of the people that come to the Capitol they're talking about kitchen table issues. And that's the cost of groceries, the cost of inflation. And we spend a lot of time at the state capitol working on legislation that doesn't make Coloradans' lives better. And I think that that's one of the most frustrating things about being in the building is there's so many agenda items that are used as a political football. Sometimes we really don't get our hands dirty in the work of the people. But that's kind of an overall rundown of the session, kind of what the feeling was at the building. When it comes down to the actual legislation that happened, as Assessor Amato said, nobody was happy with the tax bill. Republicans or Democrats didn't come away from the table 100% happy. I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing. We had to get in there and work bipartisanly to try to come up with a plan that was going to help Coloradans. They overwhelmingly shot down HH. We went into special session, and unfortunately, like a lot of times, some legislators don't listen to the citizens, and they repackaged Prop HH and they passed it out. We couldn't get on board with that because I believe that's dirty dealings. I couldn't get with that. We started the Blue Ribbon Commission and sat down bipartisanly starting in January, and we came out with about the best tax plan that we could, like I said, with what the situation that we're dealing with. The ballot initiatives are going to play part of this, but what basically we look at it as in the legislators is we came out with a tax policy, there's ballot initiatives, the citizens of Colorado will decide. They want to go with our tax policy, the ballot initiatives won't pass. If they want the ballot initiatives to pass, then we'll have to readjust tax policy. Another thing I was excited to support was the school finance this year. This is probably the first time in at least a generation, 30 to 50 years, that rural schools are going to be financed to what they should be. This is one thing I learned about being in the state capitol, is if big city school districts are mad, rural Colorado is winning. Cherry Creek, Dudco, some of the biggest school districts in the states are furious because instead of the money going to the schools, the money is finally following the kids. 27 schools in House District 47 are going to see a pretty good increase with funding to their students. And that's important because generationally we've been left out of the conversation. And I will say this again, anytime the big city school districts are upset, that means Colorado rural schools are winning. So that was a really good piece of legislation that's going to affect rural Colorado. I ran a handful of legislation. I always think that more than 10 or 12 bills is too much legislation, but the bills that I ran, I really looked at for the district. One of the bills that I'm really excited about, I worked with Majority Leader Duran. We ran a trafficking bill, human trafficking bill. As we've all seen, the movie Sound of Freedom came out last summer, hit the airwaves, and then I think Americans realized two things. First of all, we have a problem as Americans because we are one of the biggest purchaser of trafficked human beings in the world. And second thing we realized is this is really a problem that's happening around the country. We ran a human trafficking bill. It was a little bit more powerful than when it came out. You have to realize that the judiciary, 6 of the judiciary members are inner city elected officials, and there's a lot of anti-police, pro-crime legislation that comes out of the Capitol, so it was hard to get a real solid bill that actually punishes criminals. And I know that sounds hard, but that's one thing we fight at the state Capitol all the time is they talk about the lowering of crime rates. Well, the only reason crime is lowering is because we're decriminalizing crime. So if there's no crimes on the books, then you can't commit a crime. But the child trafficking bill, one thing it did was it lifted the statute of limitations. And as we talk, and if I'm talking too much, please let me know. One thing that we learned is talking to victims of trafficking is what their kidnappers would do is hold them down for the statute of limitations. We extended that to 20 years so they could build the courage to actually go file charges. Another thing we did was add sentence enhancers. So if you especially used a weapon, even if it's a knife, it then becomes a crime of violence, and then you can have a sentence enhancement. So I was really happy to pass that bill to kind of put down, that, especially with the border crisis that we're seeing, if you traffic people in Colorado, we're going to punish you. Another bill that I was excited to run was House Bill 1249, which was the tax agricultural credit for land stewardship. Right now, federal credits are going to run out in the next year to year and a half for soil health. We saw that need last year. Myself and Senator Powell worked all summer on this bill. We got Representative Martinez out of the Valley and Dylan Roberts up on the I-70 corridor to sign along with this. This is a 3-tiered tax credit system that'll give tax credits for the practices of low-till, no-till, rotational grazing, rotational crops, interseeding. Really upset. It was supposed to be $10 million a year being infused back into rural Colorado, and once again, I will say the governor and his staff gave rural Colorado a haircut, and they pulled the bill from $10 million to $3 million, which is really disheartening to me, especially when I sit there and see where we push money in this state and to what programs we do. That rural Colorado was left on the outs, but fought as hard as I could to put your tax dollars back in the district and back towards the people that feed and clothe Colorado. Another bill that I was excited to work on was Senate Bill 2499, and that's the Public Employees Retirement. And what that is for superintendents and principals and staff. In Colorado, it's getting harder and harder to recruit teachers into rural school districts. So what this does is allow people that were in administration to come out of retirement while still paying into para and teach without their retirement being affected. So this allows people that have been retired that want to get back and help the district, that they're not hit on their para, but they're also putting into para. So I really tried to pass my legislation around. One was a farm bill, one was a crime bill. This was an education bill. I also ran House Bill 241457, worked with the Attorney General's office. One thing that we see, especially in House District 47, is asbestos and lead paint with all the old buildings that we have. What this is there's a cash fund that's been created by fines that were collected for asbestos issues, and this will allow people to apply for grants to be able to get help. At Baca County and Otero County have had some real issues. Otero County, they wanted to work on their bus barn. It was cheaper to build a new bus barn than to tear in their old bus barn because of the asbestos and lead paint. Another bill that I ran, so last year I ran the physician's assistant bill, which allowed physician's assistants to work under, instead of direct supervision, in collaboration with the doctor. So what we're seeing in rural Colorado is I have a county that I represent that if it wasn't for physician's assistant, they'd only be able to see a doctor about every 2 weeks. So what this does is it allows physician's assistants, like there's one in Lamar that worked there forever, their doctor moved to Denver. They were in limbo because they weren't working under direct supervision of that doctor. This changes that clause to in collaboration. So that'll kind of help plug some of the holes that we have in our healthcare in rural Colorado. Well, this year I ran a follow-up bill to allow us to join interstate compacts that'll help us recruit these physician's assistants into House District 47. I also ran, this bill came to me from the Corners Association. I don't know if you all know of Riley Whitelaw. Riley Whitelaw was the little girl that worked at Walgreens in El Paso County, and she was stabbed to death by somebody that was enamored with her. Her mom and the Coroners Association, because of my ties to the funeral industry, asked me if I would help carry this piece of legislation based upon the sensitive nature of it. I got to meet with Courtney Whitelaw many times, and what this was it was a really hard piece of legislation to craft because we had to balance the First Amendment right to free press along with protecting the information about these young individuals that are brutally murdered, especially that are minors. And what Riley's mom Courtney saw was like the clickbait Facebookers, get fast, get popular fast type of news media sources. They were taking this and they were trying to push autopsy photos out, and they were pushing this narrative out for clickbait. This will roll back and make it actually a journalist do investigative journalism. That's lost in society today. I mean, you can say anything online now and it's news. This will actually make journalists do investigative work and come up with reasons that they need this person's information, reasons that they have to show that this information is pertinent to the news stories that they're writing. I think we can go from the point of saying that somebody that's a minor might have been stabbed to death instead of saying they were stabbed 76 times. I think those are just details that a family and the coroners should have a little bit of control of. They'll still be able to get all that information, they just have to go through a few more steps to show that they have some skin in the game. So that was a real emotional piece of legislation because the testimony on that, to hear from these families that have went through their families' life story getting splattered across the news with horrific things, that was a good piece of legislation. It did my heart good. I also ran and got past a firefighter license plate expiration or transfer, and that's just to make sure that when people return in their firefighter plates or there's a transfer that they don't just to keep the plate because it goes against the fireman's fund. And then I ran a bill for pretty much the Eastern Plains, Senate Bill 24220, which is the overweight and oversized motor vehicle permits. But this bill does two things. First of all, the Port of Plains, they have a lot of guys that are coming across state lines without the proper paperwork, and it's destroying their back roads, and they don't have the money to repair these highways and roads. So what this does is to make sure, first of all, that the fees are being collected to do that, and second of all, it allows for the state patrol to do emergency permits. So say there's a tornado in Eads, Colorado, and there's people that have to bring housing and materials in from Kansas that are oversized loads. The state patrol will be able to basically meet them and say, okay, here's your permit, and they'll give them a list and a map of roads and byways that they can take that are, first of all, can handle the loads, and second of all, can handle the traffic. That was a really important bill that came out of Prowers County. And then I ran two bills. One was kind of really funny, Senate Bill 24180. I'm known at the Capitol as the limited government guy, so the lobby came along like, hey, Rep. Winter, we're going to ask you to run one of the shortest pieces of legislation in Colorado history, which it is. We struck one sentence about digital fungible sports tokens out of CRS. So that was kind of a fun but interesting bill. And then I ran a modification of state agency and department reporting requirements, and basically it's to bring these departments and agencies in lines with submission dates. Now that we have email, now that we have different means of communication, it's trying to streamline government. And there's a handful of those bills that come through every year. So those are the piece of legislation that I co-primed. Over the last 2 years, I think that I've tried to lay down a set of legislation that looked at the needs of all of House District 47, but also helped Coloradans. Like I said, once again, I'm going to say, we're blessed to have the commissioners we have not only in Los Angeles County, but in House District 47, and working with our local elected officials. Like I was calling Jody, because I show up you guys at 5:30 in the morning, I don't leave till midnight most nights. I was elected as the Assistant House Minority Leader, so now that I'm in leadership, you can't lead from the back, you've got to lead from the front. So I live at that building, which means a lot of times I don't see the sun at all. But like I'm able to call Jody and Otto, I'm able to call these commissioners 9, 10 o'clock at night, and they work really hard for you guys. And it's important that we have these relationships because I think that's lost at the state capitol. I think a lot of these legislators get there and I think they forget who they're actually really representing, and they start to represent the lobby corps and the special interests in Denver, because when you get there, it's kind of like the fishbowl. But I have 9 sets of commissioners to keep me in line. I have 9 county sheriffs. I try to be as accessible or the most accessible state legislator. I kind of have that reputation at the Capitol. I get with these gentlemen all the time, these ladies. I'm blessed to be able to work with individuals like that because, as I was explaining in the beginning, it's more of a rural-urban divide, and it's a real thing. Our ways of thinking, I said this at the WOW numerous times, it's not like we're living in two separate states. It's like we're literally living in 2 different states right now. The values of the Front Range and the Metroplex do not align with the values of the majority of people around that. and it's really trying to find and strike that balance. I've been beneficial in ways with relationships. One thing I did say is when I got elected, I was going to represent Democrats and independents, no different than I represented Republicans. I believe I was able to go to the Capitol and actually pass legislation that falls within my values but is beneficial to everybody in this district, no matter what your affiliation is. I've been able to build relationships with people along on the other side of the aisle. I will be honest with you, there are some people there that their values are so far from what even you could even imagine. It's still good to be civil, say good morning and have a good day, but at the end of the day, the relationships that I built with the Majority Leader Monica Duran, Matt Martinez out of the Valley, Megan Lukens, those are good, solid Democrat colleagues of mine that we can put partisan issues aside and work on kitchen table issues that actually help the citizens of Colorado. And then we can fight about that stuff later on. But for the most part, I built those relationships, and I'm gonna keep going back, swinging away for you guys at the Capitol. It's been an honor to serve you all. This is not a campaign pitch, but I do have to let you know I am rerunning for office. It's a 2-year term, so I will definitely, I've already put my name in the hat, and the first 2 years I learned a lot, but I'm really excited to get back in the arena for you guys, work with you on the TPR bill. And if you guys have any questions, I hope that was a fair enough update. There was a lot more water issues. We were able to get some water things done. It's huge. They really were coming at us with WOTUS 2.0, which went against the SACR ruling. Commissioner Haas was very instrumental in helping me. We got a lot of exemptions for agricultural water, which was important. So, we worked on water. It was probably the biggest water bill and most important piece of legislation that had been through the building in 40 years. They had the alcohol wars over again. I didn't know anything about alcohol wars, but big alcohol, the commissioner knows about it. We dealt with that. That was another tough issue this year. A lot of school-related issues. There's a lot of things going on in the bigger school districts. I would have to say, though, there's a big attack on private property rights. A lot of that has to do with the green agenda. A fierce attack on our water rights. And I think that's another thing that rural Coloradans have to remember is the only way to obtain sustainable growth on the Front Range is on the back of agri-centered communities in our water. And we need to make sure that we, hold Denver in check because they're trying to run this narrative that it's the state's water. It's not the state's water. There are people that have prior appropriations. Don't get me wrong, we have interstate compacts that we have to follow. We have to push water to Kansas. As you know, Nebraska was getting ready to sue over the Republican River Compact. But we've been really pushing hard on the national compacts to get Nevada, Arizona, California to fall in line with their water goals. We passed a lot of legislation this year that had to do with retaining water, like gray water systems in buildings. One of them had to do with finding different hybrids of seeds for sod. Another thing that'll affect even the city of Trinidad is now if you put like a new boulevard or byway in, I don't even think that you can put grass in unless it's a certain type of seed. So we've been really trying to set a high bar and good example for the lower states in the compact. They're gonna have to get in line because water right now is probably the most scarce resource that Coloradans don't talk enough about. Education, I talked about high school education. When it comes to higher ed, college education, I hate to say it, unfortunately, the legislature and the governor gets it wrong there a lot. They don't pump nearly as much money into higher ed as they should in the state of Colorado. So higher ed, we fought really hard for higher ed to put more dollars in higher ed this year. There was a big attack on Tabor. Any tax credit is a slight attack on Tabor. There's one legislator that spent $1 billion this year. But I will say it was really scary, and then I'll finish from last year to this year, the fear for money. Last year, people were spending money like it was going out of style, and this year, basically, the governor and JBC said you all better tighten your belts. The governor's ask was about $80 million for the budget, and he only gave the House and Senate $24 million total to split, so it came to about $13.5 million per chamber. So that's outside of intergovernmental bills. So the state's hurting for money. The COVID money is run out. We've overextended like we do. I mean, it's really hard to try to be fiscally conservative in that building because, there's a lot of times that we pass a lot of feel-good legislation that we can't afford, first and foremost. It's fiscally irresponsible, and we're not putting money in the proper places. I'm not going to get into the weeds on some of the things, but if you ever want to catch me, there's programs that I can tell you that we're shoving money in that just blows my mind that will pit certain issues against feeding kids, or will pit the housing crisis. That's another thing that we deal with up there. The housing crisis is real. One argument that we do have all the time at the Capitol is there's more than one way to skin a cat. Right now, me and my colleagues are in the super minority, but if we're really trying to fix the housing crisis, we should be using every tool in the toolbox. And we should be cutting red tape, reducing regulation, reducing, checking our zoning, our building permits and fees. If we want to promote growth in housing, then, we have to make it towards conducive, especially with the cost of inflation and materials. So those are some of the major issues. I could go for another 40 minutes, but I hope that was good.
Thank you, Representative Winter, and Assistant Minority Leader. You can come back anytime.
Thank you.
And Chambers, I think our constituents, not only from San Luis County, we have this, it's going to be posted. So thank you so much. I want to open it up for my fellow commissioners if they have any questions, any comments. But we really appreciate the work that you have.
It's my honor, sir. It's been my honor.
Thank you for protecting our San Luis County too.
Yes, sir.
All of your rural counties that we've been on that water, that was huge.
Yes, sir.
To get those amendments in there, thank you for carrying.
Thank you for your help on that, sir.
Thank you, my friend. Representative Winters, I've watched you grow from, you started in politics and now you are a true leader and a steward for our community and for House District 47. Thank you for what you did.
Thank you, sir. It's my honor to serve you all, and you all know we got work to do this summer, so thank you for having me. Appreciate you all.
Thank you. Have a good day. Next, under Section 5 presentations, we have Los San Luis County District Attorney, Mr. Henry Solano.
Thank you all. Henry Solano, District Attorney.
Good morning, sir.
7 months. You all have to put up with me. Otherwise, somebody else. Let me first start off by commending and thanking House Representative Tyler. He has taken the approach that, as you listen to his legislation, is it is a common sense approach to very practical problems. Two of which I can identify personally with, at least I and my family. I will start out by saying, in law enforcement, we share the same concern about the difference between an urban perspective on crime and a rural perspective on crime. What may be common and accepted as common in the urban areas is just ongoing crime viewed as lower level actually becomes higher in terms of adverse impact to our residents and members in the rural area. And that's one of the things we're going to have to work on. So in terms of your trafficking bill and sentence enhancers, when I first got here, there had been no habitual sentence enhancement charging of individuals. We have started to do so and have, by doing so, had individuals start to commit to higher plea bargains, plea agreements, some of which include agreeing to being and finding themselves as habitual offenders, which means that in the future, even though we do it for a lower level sentence, we purposely do it so that the next time they come in and commit a crime, they are sentenced to 4 times the presumptive range. And that can take a 12-year sentence and make it a 48-year sentence. And the prosecutors, whether here or in other jurisdictions, don't have to prove they're a habitual offender because we've already gotten them to admit that. I'm afraid that there's going to be an attack on the habitual sentence enhancers coming out of the Capitol next year. I will strongly, in whatever capacity, advocate against that because I've seen the impact, the positive impact it can have here. The other piece that I have a family connection on is the bill related to physician assistants. My wife is a retired physician assistant. She was part of the Physician Assistants Association that helped write the first regulatory rules and regulations for physician assistants. And when she read Representative Winter that you were advocating about that bill passed, she understood very well that they are very solid practitioners, they are very competent practitioners, and in the rural areas, even in the urban areas, physician assistants provide a lot of the primary care that people need. And we need that here in the rural area because we're finding it hard to attract medical practitioners. So you have a Democrat who is thanking you, congratulating you for your work. I'll continue to support you. We're friends as well as colleagues. Let me turn to the agenda item. As you all know, I reviewed the Colorado Bureau of Investigation report concerning allegations related to the Los Angeles County Commission. I'll just give you a little bit of a background before I do so. In this district, the 3rd Judicial District, even in southern Colorado, I am probably one of the few, if not the only, district attorney who has extensive and has had extensive background related to grand juries. As a U.S. attorney, as an assistant U.S. attorney, that's the only way we can prosecute cases is by presenting to a grand jury. I'm the one who convened a grand jury on this Gina Real for a homicide, which later led to a successful prosecution here in Los Angeles County. First time the grand jury had been convened going back a number of years. I think one of my predecessors, whose father is the father of one of the commissioners, had actually done one or more. So when I was asked about whether or not a grand jury should be convened on the allegations, my first comment was not just the answer was no, not at this time. Not because I didn't believe in grand juries, it's because the way and the purpose of a grand jury is to use it as an investigatory tool together with local law enforcement. You do not start a grand jury without local law enforcement involvement or law enforcement involvement because you have to have at least some preliminary information to suggest that a grand jury, one, is necessary, and two, the grand jury is used to be able to compel testimony before you actually indict that may help in terms of strengthening or determining what to be done in terms of allegations. And at least at the time I was requested to convene one, or it was suggested that I and the Attorney General should convene one, there were no facts that were being identified that would allow for or call for the expenditure of that resource. Because as you may know, a grand jury calls for citizens from within the local area who must sit at the direction of a court and hear evidence. That's an important function, but it takes time out of ordinary individuals' schedules within which to perform that very important duty. And so if you're going to ask for one, since it's not required at all times from the federal system, there needs to be a basis. That's the reason why I suggested that at the beginning, a grand jury was not necessary. I, in fact, directed the individual who requested that to bring together whatever information they had to a local law enforcement agency. And if and when that local law enforcement agency determined that a grand jury might be necessary, they could come, as they did in the Gina Real case, the homicide case, to me, and we in fact convened a grand jury. The second part is in terms of ethical standards. I have been licensed for 45 years. For most, if not all, of my career, I've maintained the highest rating as a lawyer, not only locally, not only in the state, but nationally. And in fact, I've been the chief ethics officer for several federal agencies, legal agencies, and departments. And as you all know, I've been found to be an expert in ethics in civil litigation. I raise that because someone has challenged or raised the question that whether or not I should have been involved in the investigation and the final determination concerning the coroner. And I'll explain that a little bit further. The report I issued, the statement I made, was very narrow, very direct. There were absolutely no substantiated facts to confirm not only that there was not a criminal act committed by the coroner, but there wasn't even probable cause, which is basically a lesser standard to suggest even that there was a basis to proceed further, to initiate an arrest, or to initiate search warrants for further investigatory action related to the Los Angeles coroner, based upon the very broad and unsubstantiated claims that were bandied about and given to ultimately the Los Angeles County Sheriff's Department, which referred the matter to the Colorado Bureau of Investigations. I have worked with the top law enforcement agencies nationally and locally, not only the CBI, the FBI, the DEA, Customs, IRS agents, U.S. Mail, Inspector Generals, and agents. They do very solid and detailed work. I have had many investigations that we have been involved in the last 7 years involving the Colorado Bureau of Investigation. It is an eminent and preeminent agency within the state of Colorado. And therefore, when they were willingly tasked to take on the investigation, I wholeheartedly support that. And in my role as district attorney, I would have been and was the advisor to them during the investigation. But when I say advisor, in this instance, I purposely said to them that they, given their expertise, would investigate every single allegation and claim, and not only those that were raised, but any and all legal criminal statutes that may or may not have been implicated. And as I've done in other situations with the CBI, and even with our local law enforcement agencies, I let them do their work. And when they have questions concerning the criminal laws, that's when they come to me. When they have questions about whether or not some factual circumstance or claim needs further development or needs to be considered under the guidance of what might be a criminal law, they come to the district attorney, and we provide, either I or one of my deputies provide that guidance. But in this instance, they started the investigation, they continued the investigation. I had several limited conversations with them. I believe they started their investigation in January. The first contact I had was early March, because they were out to do their own work. And in that, they just raised the question as to, did I see anything other, once they briefed me as to any other criminal law that might be implicated. I indicated to them, I did not see anything, but they should continue to finalize the report, and then we would again meet before they finally issued their data and the report, just as a confirmation. Well, to say that for this very important reason, I did not interfere with or direct or guide in any way the Colorado Bureau of Investigations in their extensive and comprehensive investigation in this matter. And as I reported, and as I looked at the files, they had reviewed over 108 different forms of data and information, reports, videos, pictures, statements, even statements that were presented to this commissioner's group as part of a presentation. They reviewed all of the media that was raised in the situation. They conducted over 11 interviews. And that may not have been 11 different people, but they conducted interviews multiple times of one of the main protagonists, of the coroner, and several other people. So over 11 interviews were conducted. Based upon all of that, at the end of that period of time, when we talked, I did not see, based upon the information they provided, that there was any criminal violation, or as I said, probable cause. I asked them quite candidly, what is their view on those two very points? They independently confirmed from their belief that there was no basis within which to find probable cause of any criminal investigation. And therefore, no crime had been committed, at least in terms of substantive factual information that we could rely on for the purposes of charging an individual and seeking a prosecution. Well, they don't have the same standard that the prosecutors do, and I'm talking about professional standard 3.8. A prosecutor must at all times not initiate, continue, even all the way up to presenting to a jury a case within which they do not have admissible evidence that they believe can lead to a conviction beyond a reasonable doubt. And if at any time that standard cannot be met, the matter has to be closed, dismissed. And I have done that both as U.S. Attorney and I've done that here as a district attorney. So that standard, which is applicable to all prosecutors, has been adhered to at all times and in this particular instance. Now let me go back as to some of the core claims that were raised. One of the claims was that the coroner did not have the permission to bury on that particular private cemetery. What the interviews established is the family members basically had delegated to at least one of the family members the oversight of the cemetery, not the current owner, which I believe is Mr. Mestis, but one of the family members, Mr. Leroy Villa, who is basically, and has been, since his grandfather, or their grandfather, had obtained the property, had been basically the custodian and caretaker of the cemetery. He is the one who possessed the key to get into the cemetery. And someone from the family at all times had authorized and opened the gate so that the coroner and county staff members would be on site to dig the graves and to then fill in the graves. So while Mr. Mestis may not have been aware at the time, there was permission. So there was no trespass. Now sometimes, and I've seen one media report claim that, well, how can you be convinced that something untoward didn't go on? Well, number one, you have to have someone open up the gates so you can bury. Number two, in this instance, for the 5, at that time, unknown individuals, county employees were used and heavy equipment within which to dig the grave, and then, as I said, to fill in the grave. Now, a media report has said, geez, it's a little disconcerting that out of the 5 people, there were 9 times the county crews were on site. That's easily explained by the following. In one instance, the digging of the grave and the filling in of the grave happened on the same day. In the other instances, it happened on one day that the hole was dug, and then the grave was filled in the next day. That's how you can have for 5 different bodies, county employees on site 9 times. Yet there are those who would speculate that something untoward had happened. That leads to another point. The unfortunate circumstance of disappearance of Dave Shire. Many of us know Dave Shire, knew him, and hopefully know him, but the records reflect that for the 5 bodies that were buried in that cemetery, who at the time were unknown individuals, at least next of kin were not known, the last one occurred on October of 2020. Mr. Shire was last seen February of 2022. So the claim somehow that there was a homicide, which was unsubstantiated, no one knows whether that happened or not, and that he is buried on site, when the records only reflect 5 burials ending in October of 2020 with his last appearance in 2022, does not provide a basis within which to suspect or claim, as has been claimed, that somehow Mr. Shire is buried in that cemetery. And there are some other practical facts that go with that. Number one, the cemetery would have had to been unlocked, and there's no information that it was unlocked in 2022 or 2023. The next part is, as with the other 2 of the other 5, it took a backhoe to dig and then to replace the dirt. There are no records from the county. The county employees were used in that manner in 2022. So if someone were to have done that, and Mr. Shire is located there, they would have had to either break in and or hand dig and then cover over. Possible? Maybe. But from an investigatory perspective, there is no information that would lead to a belief that that occurred. Another situation that was claimed was that the coroner had obtained and/or misused funds, state and/or county funds, state funds through the county, for the purposes of those burials. The records going back to I have to stop and think about this because the FBI went back, I think, from 2014 to 2023. In no instance was the local county coroner's office funded for any burial. So the claim that the coroner had received money and therefore took it, pocketed, or misused it has no factual basis at all, let alone for a criminal purpose. The other claim that was identified related to the co-location of more than one body in a gravesite. There is no criminal statute that directly deals with that. The criminal statute that might deal with it is the one that deals with tampering with a body or mutilation or misuse of a body. That does not apply according to the CBI, and I agree with that decision. And in fact, people can be co-located, but the standard usually is a family member is the one who makes that decision, which is common sense. In this instance, at the time that the burials occurred, no next of kin was available. One of the next of kin who later came to identify the individual is a relative. There had been some estrangement, it appears, from that person and the relative, and that person did not know of the deceased family member until after the burial had occurred. And that's because DNA analysis was done, captured information on the individuals by the coroner's office, and it was that DNA analysis, which was subsequently done, that allowed a family member who later was looking for their relative, was able to track the information and then come back down and claim as family members can claim to retrieve the body. There was another instance stated that the coroner had somehow quickly tried to bury a body when another family had requested access to and the body of their relative. Again, that family was not aware of that individual until after the burial had already occurred and a fair amount of time had already passed. Again, not an untoward situation, just a happenstance of the facts as they occurred. Now let me go to the last allegation, which is the one that primarily brings me here to discuss this. There is a claim that I should not have reviewed this matter under a conflict of interest because there is a relationship with a member of my staff, my investigator, to the coroner. I'm very well aware of the statutes that call for the disqualification of a district attorney. I have to deal with that all the time. And the statute by this legislature does not allow for or call for disqualification just on an appearance of conflict of interest, which used to be one of the considerations, but a decade ago the legislature removed that because there was a belief that district attorneys should fulfill their duties and claimants should not be able to try and cause a district attorney to be recused and to have some other office have to assume that responsibility. So there are two circumstances by statute within which disqualification can occur. That is when the district attorney himself has a personal interest, financial interest or otherwise, in the matter. In this instance, I have no such personal interest. The other is special circumstances, which the case law identifies as being very narrow. And in that instance, may call for the need to find an alternative prosecutor, special prosecutor. For example, when a member of the district attorney's office or the district attorney himself is a witness on a substantial material fact related to a matter pending in terms of a prosecution. None of those factors exist. I was asked about whether or not, because the claim was that Investigator Maria had contacted the funeral home director who was to do the exhumation of the body. When I reviewed that, no such contact had been made by Ms. Maria on behalf of the office or otherwise. We were even involved in the whole situation. But what the CBI found is that the person, who is a woman, who contacted Mr. Marshall, the funeral home owner who did the exhumation, that phone number he captured. But he also then interacted with that woman and obtained her email address to send information. That woman is the director of the health department, Ms. Kim Gonzalez. Yet the person who made the allegation claiming a conflict of interest claimed that the number was that of Ms. Maria, when in fact the facts substantiate that it is the health director, who we all know and has a responsibility for confirming when someone is to exhume their body, that they have authority and that it will be properly done. There was no misconduct, no appearance even of conflict of interest by my office or by me as it relates to this investigation. And the last point is that I purposely, because of the serious nature of this, myself and only myself reviewed all of the information from the Colorado Bureau of Investigations, interacted with the Colorado Bureau of Investigations, and made the ultimate decision not to prosecute. I did not want anybody else involved, not because they were qualified, but because I wanted to keep this narrow and close hold because of similar allegations being made somehow that this office and members in this office had acted in a manner that was not according to our ethical obligations and standards. That is a summary of all of the information. Your attorney has asked for, and I identified to her that although I have the records from the Colorado Bureau of Investigation, the records of the DA's office are not subject to disclosure. I've done that not only in this case, but I've had 4 or 5 excessive use of force cases that I've had, unfortunately, to have to write a report on. And in each of those instances, our files, the district attorney's files, are not open for use. That is because we exercise independent and legal judgment, and that is not something that we share. And that's permitted under, and that's a basis compliant with not only Colorado Open Records Act, but the CCJRA, the Colorado Criminal Justice Records Act, which does not make those records available. However, as I identified to your legal counsel, Ms. Nelson, the CBI has its own policy once an investigation is closed. And I'm familiar that once a request is made of the CBI, more generally than not, their investigatory file, which is the file that I review, is released as part of their policy. Again, that is because the investigation is closed and they make an independent decision and determination. So that's a sum total of what led to the ultimate conclusion and why in every single instance, for every single claim, there was no basis to claim that criminal misconduct
District Attorney Solano, thank you so much. Thanks for the information. Commissioners, do you have any comments, any questions?
Thank you, Chairman. Thank you, Mr. Solano, and thank you for your kind words for my father. I think of him every day, but especially today would have been his 80th birthday. So coincidentally, you mentioned him, and thank you for that. I'd like to thank you for your staff and your office and the CBI for this investigation. This has been truly a black eye on our community. I want to thank you for the exoneration of our county coroner, Mr. Junior Berger, and the CBI for investigating this. This has wholeheartedly been a very bad situation for Los Angeles County. I will be putting out a public comment soon. I was waiting for your report today. I believe this is what you were to be discussing, but I wasn't sure, so thank you for that. And I know your office will investigate truly if there was any wrongdoing on the other part, on the other side, that was falsely reporting this. I'm sure there are some state statutes for false reporting and possibly some penalties for doing so for state funds and for county funds. And I know you will do due diligence to report. So thank you again for your office and for what you do today.
Thank you, sir. Commissioner Harris?
Thank you so much for clearing this up for us. This has been really pulls at the heartstrings when these allegations were made, and I'm glad that you're clearing this up for us. Thank you.
District Attorney, on behalf of this Board of County Commissioners, thank you for the exhaustive work that you put out, and once again for all the detail. Thank you so much.
Take care. Excuse me, is this open for comment?
No, sir. We're going to go now to we're going to go to the next section of this meeting. Let me remind everyone that is going to be providing public comment that you have 3 minutes by which to address this board, and without appearing to be non-professional, there will be a timer that we keep. And so we also, this board has passed some respectful language anytime that we're going to be addressing and speaking on behalf of whatever you're going to be talking about. So first of all, 3 minutes, Mr. Camperson is ready to start. You'll get the timer. Let me call on Ms. Catherine Winter. Good morning.
Good morning, Commissioners and panel, and thank you for your time. My name is Mary Kitsy Winter, President and shareholder of the Coney Funeral Home. I would like to address a very serious matter that has opened untrue and unwarranted attacks on my family, our reputation, and the integrity that we have built through serving this community over the last 85 years. Up until now, I have really ignored the drama and hearsay spewed by the local tabloids. Mr. Murphy has continuously attended your meetings and have thrown jabs at our town, its citizens, and local elected officials. At your last meeting, he levied slanderous accusations, which were false, against my family, particularly my father, in our business, which I think are unnecessary, especially in this forum. I have been a lifelong resident of our beautiful community, which I love, and I also take great pride in our reputation for serving the families with utmost compassion and professionalism. I'm here today to review Mr. Murphy's most recent allegations at the last meeting, particularly this time about my father, Steve Comey. This inexcusable claim was wrong and unjustified, as his reputation and standing in this community speaks for itself. Our family stands on honesty and fairness. We have worked hard to gain the respect and trust of this community. My parents provided free ambulance service for over 25 years to this community, and my dad was instrumental in getting the Trinidad ambulance services started. Aside from the funeral business, my father served as a county coroner for over 20 years. My parents were diligent and worked tirelessly to build a legacy founded on hard work, dedication, trust, and honesty, which we have continued through 3 generations of unwavering commitment to our town, Los Animas County, and the surrounding areas. To have Mr. Murphy implicate us in his daily drama undermines everything we have worked for. Over the years, he has levied many untrue attacks on myself and my family. However, I cannot stand by anymore idly as he makes claims about my father who passed away 15 years ago and is not able to defend himself and his reputation. The constant drama Mr. Murphy creates for Facebook likes and media hits is a waste of your time, my time, but mostly important time taken away from you as you try to tackle the real issues that affects the taxpayers of our county I love. I want to make something crystal clear. I feel competition is healthy for any business or industry if those involved compete with honor, ethics, and honesty. With that being said, I would like to put on record that Mr. Murphy's continued use of untrue statements, libel, and slander against my family and our business only serves to highlight the lack of respect and integrity on his part. I will do whatever it takes to stop this vicious cycle of rumors and innuendos. I've had enough, and enough is enough.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
The next individual that we have signed up is Mr. Dominic Burker. Once again, Mr. Burker, be reminded, there will be 3 minutes for your comments. Thank you, sir, and good morning.
Good morning. Is everybody? I can also set my time. Good morning. Everybody hear me okay? Yes. Some concerns I have on allegations made by Tom Murphy of Malaria Funeral Home. I have been cleared by the Third Judicial District Attorney's Office as well as Colorado investigation. Some few items of clarification on the property owner. At the time I procured the grave for the construction cemetery, I was not aware that Mr. Carl Mestis was in fact the owner of the property. Payments for the gravesite were made to Mr. Paul Valdez to the Los Angeles County Coroner's Office budget. CBI investigative report clearly states that. Second thing, permits to bury bodies. All proper permits were obtained prior to burial. This is also confirmed by CBI investigative report. Number 3, reimbursement by DHS. Contrary to Tom Murphy of Malaire Murphy Funeral Home accusations, no monetary transactions were occurred between DHS, Department of Human Services, and myself or the Los Angeles County Coroner's Office. The coroner request to DHS clearly states that the only monies distributed by DHS were to Malaire Murphy Funeral Home in this amount of $1,020. No one else. KOAA and the Chronicle News reported the sum of $1,500 distributed to the Los Angeles County Coroner's Office. Again, another false accusation stated by Tom Murphy of Malaire Murphy Funeral Home. Last but not least, the Shire family. What upset me the most, I actually vomited that day when I heard that Tom Murphy of Malaire Murphy Funeral Home alluded to the fact that the possibility of Mr. Dave Shire's body was buried in the Stockton Cemetery. What kind of a person would purposely convey such outrageous comments to an already distraught family? The accusation that Mr. Shire was buried in the same grave is preposterous. Mr. Shire went missing in 2022, burial was done in 2019. Do the math. Also, contrary to news reports, I was not in the Stockton Cemetery 13 times. I was there 2 times for CBI investigative report. I received many phone calls from individuals in the community stating, from individuals in the community stating their concerns that Tom Murphy of Malaire Murphy Funeral Home saw an easy way to obtain financing from the Shire family, pursuing his court request as well as his recall effort. This is the final statement. The final CBI report, as of the 3rd Judicial DA's office, clearly stated all accusations made by Tom Murphy of Malaire Murphy Funeral Home were nothing but outrageous lies. All the lies were brought to light by the CBI investigative report that he, Tom Murphy, requested. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Burker.
Oh, perfect. I do have, if you want, 2 minutes on my elected official board association. Sorry. Billy said if I want to do my take take 2 seconds. And today we have 57 deaths in the county. Total, we have 14 within city limits.
By the way, let me clarify, so this, he had reserved the right to do the elected official update from them
Yeah,
to now, so the public comment is now closed.
Closed,
So we're going to be providing an update.
If that's okay.
Absolutely.
Yeah, 2 seconds, okay. Starting over again, we have 57 deaths thus far in the county. 14 within the city limits of Trinidad, 11 in the outskirts of the city limits of Trinidad, 6 accidental, 17 natural, a couple are still pending, and of those 57 deaths, I know the numbers don't add up, the rest of those are hospice. Okay, that's all I have, thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. We are going to be going, we don't have anything on section 8. We're going to go to section 9.
Commissioner Money.
Oh, my sincere apologies. Anyone online wishes to address this board, please unmute, raise your hand for public comment. Let me call once again, anyone online that would like to address the Board of County Commissioners under public comment, you will have 3 minutes. Hearing none, we're going to go to section 9, new business. Consideration of Royal Tavern permit application and report of changes to modified premise. Council and/or Mr. Dornicamp.
For the council.
Commissioners, I have reviewed the application, it is complete.
Commissioners, we have had this document in front of us. I believe the permit application clearly states report to changes to modify the premise. The only question I would have would be for Mr. Lucero, if there is going to be, when did you come up, Mr. Lucero? Just a quick question.
It's not a hearing, so he doesn't have this morning.
Very good, thank you. So the only question I have for you is there going to be an additional permit for construction and or for the erection of that fence?
If the fence is over 7 foot tall, they need a permit for it. I've already met with them and informed them of that, so it doesn't appear that it was going to be over 7 foot.
And thank you so much. We're at the right time at the right place. So, commissioners?
I have one, not for Mr. Lucero, clerk's office for Ms. Apple, if she knows, maybe Ms. Nelson. In the application, the permit application report changes. The name of the licensee states retail liquor license under the trade name of the Royal Tavern. Is that accurate, retail liquor license, or is it a tavern liquor license? Because retail to me, maybe the laws have changed, would be okay, so we need to make that correction on that application. So retail would to me would be package, off-premise, this is an on-premise?
Correct.
Okay. That's the only issue that I noticed in reviewing this application. What will comment though before I move forward was with any bar industry and seeing this this local tavern being successful comes at times issues that arise with this type of business. And being a former nightclub owner here in Trinidad, Wagon Wheel, many years ago, I understand completely how these issues arise in these types of establishments. My recommendation would be moving forward to the owner that they possibly start providing a little bit more of a security presence in their establishment to avoid any more serious issues that could arise for altercations moving forward. I'd like to thank our Sheriff's Department for the reports they've given to us regarding the issues that they've had at this establishment. And I'd like to also thank the owner of the establishment for reaching out to law enforcement, because by not reaching out, it would be an issue for me. So understanding these issues do arise in this type of industry, so I would make the recommendation that they really implement security measures of bouncers of some sort on their high volume evenings of events. Other than that, turn this back.
Commissioner Hess? Having all the comments and the response by council that the application is complete, I will entertain a motion at this time.
I'll make a motion to approve the Royal Tavern's permit application The changes to modified premise with the caveat in the application be changed to tavern instead of retail.
Second motion.
Commissioner Hess,
Yes.
Commissioner Luis Lopez,
Yes.
Commissioner Peterson.
Yes, 9B, consideration of TK elevator change order number 1, Mr. Darlington.
Commissioners, before you for your consideration is TK elevator change order number 1. The overall proposed original price is $236,966.12. This change order for $36,292 is for the removal of the old antiquated Lotus equipment. To bring the total project cost to $273,258.12, with the caveat that if prices change dramatically between now and when we start work, I believe after elections, November 6th or 7th, that they would come back with us perhaps with another change of material prices substantially increase. That's part of their contract also. So that's the board to approve the change order for the removal of the Otis Layer equipment, $36,292.
Thank you, Commissioners. Any discussion on this item?
Just a budget question for me. Ms. Coberly, do we have this funding mechanism in place?
We do have a budget.
I'm sorry.
We do have a budget. We do. For the elevator? Right.
Yes. Commissioner Hess?
Was this just an oversight on their behalf that they were?
No, Commissioner, it was a misinterpretation of mine. When they told us what the total price of $236,966 was, I didn't realize that it was exclusive, not exclusive, but excluding $36,292 until myself and them had a conversation. And at that time, they clarified that the removal of the Otis Layer machinery was not included in the $236,000 price.
Thank you.
And I would think that by now they have placed the order for all the necessary equipment as they see it now. So perhaps as the time goes by and prices increase, that they would have secured the majority of the commodities that are going to be going into the shaft to do the total replacement.
What they know they need to replace, those orders, I believe, have been placed. Because there's also a lag time, as we've all experienced, this kind of remodeling, if they're HVAC, there's a lag time between the time materials, or trying to get materials in on time, so yeah. But there may be stuff, once they get into the elevator, that aren't part of this, or that need to be modified, or need to be upgraded, that they need to come back with the change of given payments if it's in their contract decision. But they also don't want to tie up a lot of funds, at least from a business perspective. We typically don't want to tie up a lot of funds in inventory, so it's simple. You wait until you're ready to move that inventory before you bring it in, because you're trying to, your funds, you're not moving inventory, so. We'll see, come November.
And last question, the start time of this was after November? Is that what-
It's after the elections because we need to comply with all the ADA rules and regulations. And also, the HVAC people need to use the elevator up until they get done, which is towards the end of August and September.
Thank you.
Did you hear back from them to know if the scrap?
I've not heard anything back from them yet.
Because if they, we take the scrap and we fund them, get rid of the scrap.
I really like
Our
that.
finance director encouraged me to contact them to say, do we get the Otis geared equipment so we can go scrap it?
You know what, $1 is $1.
100%.
Thank you, I really appreciate that. And I would imagine that also with the old mediators that we might be able to get a penny for them.
Yeah.
Okay, very good. Thank you.
Except for the border. The border was part of the contract removing it, so we didn't get the border, but we got all the radiators.
Very good. Thank you so much. Commissioners, any more conversation on these? If not, otherwise I'll entertain a motion.
Move to approve the TK elevator change order number 1 in the amount of $36,292 for the removal of the
security machine.
Second motion?
Commissioner Luis Lopez?
Yes.
Commissioner Hess?
Yes.
Commissioner Felix Lopez?
Yes, thank you. Section 10, consideration of bills and payroll for the first half of May 2024. And thank you to Finance Director Corley, as she's going through an audit. That is with a new set of auditors, so I know the work that you do and your team pretty much certainly much appreciated. So financials.
Okay, payroll as of May 15, 2024 is $206,610.01. Any questions on payroll?
Commissioners, any questions for Finance Director Corley?
No questions, sir.
Invoices paid on May 1st. Let's see, $199,845.61. Within this packet, we did pay GMC Corporation for road maintenance for our road and bridge, $129,320.80. St. Anthony Church for burial expense of $150. And if there's anything else that you think that I might have missed, we can tell me now. Okay. We paid invoices on May 15th for $1,044,208.34. Within this packet, we did pay, I think this is our 5th request for milling for the HVAC for the courthouse for $923,522.55. Let's see. For deputy training, $8,955.09. For purchase of stock tires for road and bridge was $11,401.97. Anything else that you think I would have missed that you have questions on?
No, I think he's pretty exhaustive report. Commissioners?
Any questions?
Okay.
Where does Southern Tire Mart?
They were a company that bought there in the problem, but then it was in Malad. I think their predecessor was TDR. TDR's predecessor, I don't remember the commission, but it's changed hands a few times. And the tires we purchased, refers that the tire road bridge purchases from them is obviously, those are state prices. We've actually tried working with some of our local, Tangier, some of our local tire dealers, we have told us they can't compete because they can't, they don't have the volume of turnover that these bigger tire companies do, so that's why they can afford to go state bid and, excuse me, our locals can't.
Thank you. If there are no other questions, I will entertain the motion to approve 10A.
Motion to approve bills and payroll for the first half of May 2024.
Second motion.
Commissioner Hess?
Yes.
Commissioner Luis Lopez?
Yes.
Commissioner Felix Lopez?
Yes. Thank you. I thank Finance Director Coverly. And I know next 10B, information only, financials as of April 2024. And this is one of those documents that just tells a pretty good story. So, Finance Director.
So on page 1, you'll see a comparison from prior years. General fund, right now, as of April, we have a loss of $1.1 million. But you have to remember, we've only received the first half of property tax. Sales tax is already coming in. We also have HVAC going on. So we're paying out large invoices, but the grants have not come in. So we have that, so that's that. Road and Bridge has a loss of $353,000. We haven't actually done any transfers yet to Road and Bridge yet because we transferred payroll and sales tax money to him. Airport has a loss of $47,000, but we also have the cleanup. We've got FAA going out there to our money needs to come off of that. Contingent, we have a surplus of $39,000. Capital expenditure surplus of $370,000. We haven't actually started any projects in capital expenditure yet for the elevator, different things. Lottery has a surplus of $17,000. Nothing on PILT because no money has come in. LAF has a surplus of $634,000. Jail improvement has a loss of $20,000. I have not transferred any money to the jail improvement. I'll usually do that later. And any questions on financials that I went first.
Just one question,
Sure.
on the jail improvement fund, is our balance in that about 200,000 still?
Yeah, you can look on the, let's see, I'll take a page to look on. Page 29, you'll see that we have 323,000 in the jail improvement there, and then in the jail, actually we have 167,000. But I will allocate 100,000 to them. So that'll take that up to 67,000 this year.
Having said that, we'll see Sheriff Knapp right here, thank you for very cautiously spending that money, because that was the 1 cent sales tax many, many years ago. And in the 8 years, I thought that had been exhausted years ago that I've been here, and we still have some, which would probably be very needed moving forward with all of our new unfunded mandates. So thank you, Sheriff Knapp.
He uses a lot for like capital improvements, as if he does anything for the building.
As always, very good report, and I know Commissioner Petersville does as well, Kevin, and he gets these.
They're actually really good because he gives us, you know, and Christy and I stopped by the day before our meeting and just kind of go over the questions. We give a pretty good pulse of where we are as a county, percentage-wise and dollar-wise, and then also it provides this open transparency of what is outstanding. And so at the end of the day, we might show some deficiencies on some of these cost centers, but at the end of the day, we know that there are time dates where those good goals will be made. So thank you for that report. It's much appreciated. Any other comments, questions for Finance Director Robert? This doesn't require any motion, so that's for information only. Hearing none, we are going to go to section 11, executive session. The board will meet under CRS 246402B, confirmed with the county attorney, for the purpose of receiving legal advice on specific legal questions. We have A, HR services, B, CTSI, C, bulk fuel purchase, and D, insurance. I'll entertain a motion with a 10-minute recess.
So moved.
Second.
Commissioner Reese Lopez?
Yes.
Commissioner Hess? Yes. Commissioner Reese Lopez?
Yes.
Recording stopped.
Oh, come on. They're there. Where are they? Homer. Homer.